Hi, it's Mark Ellis, and welcome to another episode of RT Essentials. This week, we're talking the reason for the season. That is, the Halloween franchise and its big bad, Michael Myers. What has made audiences demand new movies in the John Carpenter classic franchise, while so many others, Freddy, Jason, Pinhead, Leatherface, have been consigned to the slasher-filled history books? With 11 movies to date and 2 more on the way, Halloween is a franchise that stood the test of time, with at least one installment in every decade since the 1970s. And while Michael Myers may not be the most charismatic or quippy of boogeymen, he is the granddaddy of them all, and with the upcoming Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, he's proving that an old babysitter-obsessed serial killer can still learn some new tricks. And as always, the spoiler alert is on. Don't touch that dial, we're about to go deep into Halloween on this week's RT Essentials. Halloween!
You can't kill the boogeyman.
Get in there, come on, Tommy! Now lock the door!
It started as a sequel pitch. In the mid-70s, John Carpenter approached writer-director Bob Clark and asked for his permission to write a follow-up to his film, Black Christmas. The script eventually evolved into its own project, Halloween, with co-writer Deborah Hill coming up with all the teens' dialogue, and Carpenter focusing on Dr. Samuel Loomis's speeches. And boy, did Dr. Loomis love to talk.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong.
Which contrasted nicely with the hulking menace of Michael Myers, a mute psychopath who murdered his sister on Halloween when he was 6 years old and 15 years later breaks out of an asylum to stalk a babysitter and her friends in Haddonfield, Illinois. In Myers, Carpenter set out to create a monster that audiences should never be able to relate to. His name is only said once in the entire film, and the credits list him as The Shape. Not only does he not talk, we never see his face. Instead, he's outfitted himself in a bleached out Captain Kirk mask. Yeah, most people don't know this, but Michael Myers, huge Trekkie fan. To play Laurie Strode, the young babysitter who manages to go toe-to-toe with Myers and survive, Carpenter cast Jamie Lee Curtis as an homage to his favorite director. Curtis's mother, Janet Leigh, starred in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.
Hello, help me! Can you please help me? Please! Can't you hear me? Oh, God!
Making her movie debut at 19, Curtis was the only actual teenager in the film, but certainly made an impression, going on to play Laurie 7 more times if we include the upcoming double feature, and becoming one of the most recognizable final girls in history. Despite some dubious expository work, how and when did Michael Myers ever learn how to drive a car? Why was that hardware store even selling masks? Halloween was a smash hit. Working off of a budget of around $300,000, it grossed $47 million at the United States box office, making it one of the most successful independent films of all time and opening the door for a multi-generational family saga to rival that of the Corleones. Halloween 2. In 1981, 3 years after the original's blockbuster success, Halloween 2 came to theaters. The sequel picks up right where the first one left off. It's still Halloween night when Michael shows up to the hospital where Laurie is recuperating after their confrontation. In order to preserve the continuity, Jamie Lee Curtis had to wear a wig to hide her newly short hair. Having turned down the chance to direct the sequel, Carpenter agreed to stay on as executive producer and writer as a way to recoup the money he felt he was owed from the original picture. Working with only a grudge and a nightly 6-pack of Heineken, Carpenter said he made some bad decisions with the story and called the final product, quote, an abomination and a terrible movie. This is why you should never do movies out of spite, people. Still, Halloween 2 was not without its merits. It introduced that Laurie was actually Michael Myers' younger sister, a bit of retconning that would remain canon until David Gordon Green's 2018 Halloween reboot, which posits that the events of Halloween 2 through Resurrection never took place. So to recap, Laurie wasn't his sister, and then she was his sister, then she wasn't his sister anymore. Forget it, Michael. This is Halloween Town.
Wait!
Wait, Laurie.
That is the exact same mask that's used in the first Halloween film. The reason it looks different is that the original Michael, Nick Castle, kept it folded in his back pocket during takes, after which it had spent several years sitting under the bed of Deborah Hill, a heavy smoker, which yellowed the rubber. The new Michael, Dick Warlock, was shorter and stockier than his predecessor and had a bigger head, causing the mask to mold differently with his face. Less explainable is Michael going from being a dark brunette to a strawberry blonde. Arguably, Michael's hair was a bigger identifying trait than Laurie's, but no, she's the one that got stuck with a wig? Come on! Castle asked the producers to keep the mask as a souvenir. Thinking this would be the last film, they let him. This led to a blanket rule going forward. No one was allowed to keep costumes or props from the set. It's also why the mask would look notably different starting with Halloween 4.
It's time, Michael.
What about Halloween 3? Yes, I'm so glad you asked. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. One year after Halloween 2, Universal Pictures decided, you know what, who needs Michael Myers? And got rid of the main antagonist tentpole propping up the entire franchise in favor of a totally original story.
Where is she? Where is she?
1982's Halloween 3 Season of the Witch was to be set up for an annual anthology series, which would reboot with a new premise each installment. Think American Horror Story, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if you're showing up to the theaters expecting to see Michael Myers and you instead get this zany story about subliminal messaging and TV commercials and an Irish druid cult manufacturing Halloween masks to turn kids into bug people, you might understand why audiences felt the way they did about Halloween 3. In the decades following its release, Season of the Witch has gained an appreciation and a cult following. As a standalone, it's so bonkers it borders on genius. But at the time, it saw a crushing defeat at the box office and all but necessitating that follow-up films have Michael Myers somewhere, not only in the movie, but in the subtitle. Originally, Carpenter tapped Joe Dante to direct the film, who in turn hired actor-screenwriter Nigel Neal to pen Halloween 3 as a horror comedy. Dante soon left the project, but producers liked the idea of a totally original script, so it stayed. Unfortunately, producers and ultimately Carpenter and new director Tommy Lee Wallace didn't understand that the goofy plot was supposed to be satirical and rewrote large chunks to be more self-serious and gory. But perhaps my favorite piece of unsubstantiated trivia about Season of the Witch is that the film was in part inspired by critic Rex Reed's review of Halloween 2, in which he claimed, if they make a Halloween 3, I'll turn in my press card. Season of the Witch would fail in this respect as well, which is why, again, it's usually not a good idea to make movies out of spite.
Please stop it. Stop it now. Turn it off. Turn it off. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
But Halloween, like Michael Myers himself, or itself, just refused to die, leading to Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers.
Michael?
With 1988's Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, the franchise had a major problem. It needed to return to the original story, but Curtis no longer wanted to be involved. This is why the film begins with Laurie Strode already dead, killed off in an off-screen car accident before the movie starts, leaving her young daughter, Jamie, to defeat Uncle Michael. Carpenter originally wanted the film to address more supernatural elements to explain why Michael Myers could suddenly, just put his hands into people like Silly Putty. But canon producers ultimately rejected the treatment written by Carpenter to make a more traditional slasher film. This led to the first time Carpenter would have no involvement with one of the Halloween films. you can still see remnants of Carpenter's Draft, which centered heavily on Haddonfield as its own character. In a plot that can only be described as half The Town That Dreaded Sundown and half Footloose, The Return sees the holiday of Halloween banned in Haddonfield, causing teens to revolt and Michael to come back and teach them all the true meaning of how to dance. Murder. The Return of Michael Myers' infamous ending saw Jamie revealed to be a baby Michael incarnate, killing her adopted mother after evading Michael in a labyrinth-like laundry chute. Playing Jamie, actress Danielle Harris confessed that she believed the next film was going to have her as the big bad, but having been spooked by the disappointing turnout of the third film, producers turned Michael Myers into the Energizer Bunny. No matter how many times he took 6 shots to the chest in close range, he just had to keep going, and going, and going. Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers.
Oh God! No! No! Run!
1 year after The Return of Michael Myers, yes, are you seeing a pattern here? A new Halloween film arrived. But while 1989's The Revenge of Michael Myers was on every poster promoting Halloween 5, the subtitle was nowhere in the actual film. As mentioned earlier, Revenge retconned the ending of Return to kill her adopted mom. A year later, a mutant traumatized Jamie lives in an institution under the care of Dr. Loomis. Sound familiar?
Stop the rage. The rage inside. You don't need that.
Maybe the craziest twist in the movie was the decision to not make Jamie a killer on a par with her uncle. This would mark the second instance of a sequel majorly retconning events we'd seen in the prior film after the opening of Halloween 2 showed a different version of the original ending of Halloween. Donald Pleasance, for one, was reportedly super pissed about Jamie not stepping into her uncle's sizable shoes and becoming the next-gen bad seed Michael Myers. Audiences, well, they weren't thrilled either. Halloween 5 had the lowest box office of any entry in the franchise.
The National Guard will take him to a maximum security facility, where he'll stay till the day he dies.
Never die.
Having been portrayed by George P. Wilbur in 4, Michael was again recast. Now 39-year-old Don Shanks was playing the 32-year-old Michael Myers, which doesn't seem like that big of a difference, but set the stage for some real age gaps in the subsequent sequels. When Michael does a drive-by of the school dance, it was originally supposed to be in a Ronald Reagan mask. This was cut as the studio didn't want their slasher film to come off as too political or to coincide with the movie coming out a few years later, Point Break. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. It would be a long 6 years before Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, arrived in 1995, in part due to studio reluctance over the poor turnout for the previous film, and partly because it was an incredibly troubled production. The Curse of Michael Myers wasn't the original subtitle to the film, but the nickname used on set that just happened to stick because of the bad luck surrounding the movie. In one tragic example, series staple and legendary actor Donald Pleasance passed away during the shoot, and a stand-in was required for Dr. Loomis's remaining scenes. With a ridiculous cult subplot, this is the one where it's officially made canon that Michael is metahuman, so at least that finally explained why he was impervious to all those bullets, and the low box office of its predecessor. The Curse of Michael Myers had no reason to open as big as it did, gaining the largest opening weekend of any film in the franchise right up until 2018's Halloween.
He walks amongst us, brother. He's come back.
Curse was blessed in one respect. It was the debut of film actor Paul Rudd. Though his big break Clueless arrived in theaters a few months earlier, the Ant-Man star had shot Halloween prior to the teen comedy, playing the role of grown-up Tommy Doyle. And he still looks the same exact age today.
Mike, you've won.
He's yours.
Speaking of age, the gap between Myers and the man who played him only grew. By this film, Michael's supposed to be in his mid-30s, while George Wilbur, the actor playing the Shape, was 54 years old. Halloween H2O, 20 years later.
Oh, God. Oh, I thought...
1998's Halloween H2O, which is really H20, but H2O is just fun to say, saw the return of Laurie Strode, and with it a clever, meta approach to the genre that had become popular after Wes Craven's Scream. In fact, Scream's writer Kevin Williamson also wrote H2O. More than one version, in fact. H2O was never supposed to be about Laurie, but when Jamie Lee Curtis expressed interest in coming back into the franchise, Williamson rewrote the entire script to focus on Miss Strode, now a private school teacher, and her teenage son.
What the do you think you're doing?
Mom, I'm really uncomfortable with you saying that
Well,
word.
then don't put me in the position, John. Do you know what day it is?
Michael Myers is dead.
Bringing it back around, Curtis's mother, Janet Leigh, actually does make an appearance in this film, marking only the second time in which mother and daughter share the screen.
Oh, damn it! Oh.
The first, fittingly, was in John Carpenter's The Fog, which also marked Leigh's last on-screen role prior to H2O.
We've all had bad things happen to us. The trick is to concentrate on today. What do I know? You just take care of yourself, okay?
Thank you very much. I'll see you Monday.
Oh, Miss Tate, happy Halloween.
Carpenter must have been thrilled to find that the franchise finally bagged his inspiration for Laurie's casting, only to be in a film that he had nothing to do with. Jamie Lee Curtis's nickname for actor Chris Durand, who played Michael Myers during filming, was Shapey. It's neither here nor there. It's just a fun thing to say. Hey, Shapey, you getting some craft services? Shapey? In the third major retcon of the franchise, H2O treats the original first two Halloween movies as canon, so Michael is still Laurie's brother, but ignores everything from Halloween's 3 through Resurrection. So Laurie never had a daughter and never died in a car accident. This was done to simplify the plot, and for that, we all just want to give H2O our sincerest gratitude. Thank you so very much. But after a pretty definitive decapitation of Michael Myers, what choice did the next film have but to bring him back by reimagining, yet again, the events of this film? Here it comes.
Hello, Michael.
Halloween Resurrection. If H2O was an attempt to make Michael meta, 2002's Halloween Resurrection tried to make him trending. The story revolved around two reality TV producers, played by Busta Rhymes and Tyra Banks, who convinced a bunch of college-age kids to spend a night at the Myers residence, equipped with only handheld cameras that broadcast their every move to the World Wide Web. After dispatching Laurie in the first 5 minutes of the movie, Michael goes home to kick his feet up, only to find these unwanted guests laying in his bed. It's Blair Witch meets the Three Bears.
Oh, man! Charlie, where the you been at, man? Don't you know we've been looking all over this for you? And why the hell you dressed like me anyway? I ain't paying you to be Michael Myers. I'm playing Michael Myers.
Once again, neither Jamie Lee Curtis nor John Carpenter wanted much to do with the film. Jamie Lee only agreed because she was under contract, but had negotiated a clause in which her character would be killed off in the opening scene. Carpenter, meanwhile, almost coined a term when he called his reaction to it cringe. They both later went on record calling Resurrection a joke. There was another returning face this time around. Director Rick Rosenthal was back in the mix after his stint on Halloween 2. New to the ensemble was stunt actor Brad Loree, playing Michael Myers in this installment. A lifelong horror fan, Laurie was originally slated to play Jason in Freddy vs. Jason until directors decided he was too short to tower over Robert Englund. Had the series not been rebooted in the following film due to massively disappointing box office grosses, Laurie had said that he'd have liked to continue slaughtering unsuspecting teens as Michael Myers. In the movie, not in real life.
Trick or treat, mother.
Several different endings to this film were shot, and the original plan was to distribute them in different theaters, a la Clue, so you gotta go multiple times to catch them all. That's a great idea! Oh, but the plan was eventually scrapped, and became a bonus feature for the Blu-ray and DVDs instead. Mark that down as to buy.
Burn! Burn!
Halloween! Again! It wasn't until Rob Zombie's 2007 Halloween that fans saw an official reboot. Inspired by Carpenter's advice to make the story his own, Zombies was a complete reimagining of the saga, focusing more on the story of Michael Myers' childhood. Zombie originally went to the studio pitching two different films, a prequel film and a more faithful reboot of the original. Both ideas were shot down, and eventually a middle ground was reached, which is why half the movie was about Myers' child years and half was a condensed version of the original Halloween film. The film starred Tyler Mane as the adult Michael, Malcolm McDowell as Dr. Loomis, Scout Taylor Compton as Laurie Strode, and Danielle Harris, yes, Laurie's daughter Jamie from The Curse and the Return, as friend Annie Beckett.
I'm Joe Grizzly. I'ma cut that mask right off your face.
At 6'9", UWF wrestler Tyler Mane is the tallest Michael to date. And this last one is just super important to me personally. This marks the first time Michael Myers would not be able to spontaneously drive a car, having been locked up his entire adult life, thus fixing my biggest problem with the entire Halloween franchise. Thank you, Rob Zombie. Michael Myers no longer on the highway as a demon speeding. Halloween 2. Again. Rob Zombie's Halloween was supposed to be a one-off, but its success all but guaranteed a sequel. Enter Halloween 2. It's a movie Rob Zombie had stated on multiple occasions he'd never make, but changed his tune when the studio greenlit it anyway, and Zombie, not wanting anyone else to ruin his vision, reluctantly agreed to write and direct. With this film, Tyler Mane became the first actor ever to play Michael Myers in consecutive films. Stuntman George Wilbur played the Shape in both The Return and The Curse of Michael Myers, but didn't get the role for The Revenge of Michael Myers, which was sandwiched in between. In a deviation from the original film, Laurie's friend and daughter of Sheriff Beckett survived the events of the first film and made a return. And with that, actress Danielle Harris officially tied Jamie Lee Curtis for most appearances in the franchise, a record Curtis then broke when she would go on to star in 2018's Halloween. Halloween 2, which only vaguely resembles the original sequel for the first 15 minutes before jumping a year ahead into a new plot, saw a new turn for the Dr. Loomis character than we'd ever seen before. Now on a book tour touting his intimate knowledge of the serial killer he helped raise, this egotistical and bombastic Loomis was inspired when Zombie started watching Dr. Phil. Oh, I want to be there in that room.
Your monster killed her.
Whoa, wait.
You butchered my baby. Back up!
It's all right, everyone. Just calm down. Calm down.
All right, I'm fine.
Everything's under control.
You son of a... I'm gonna kill you, Loomis! I'm gonna kill you, goddammit!
Halloween! Again, 2018.
Say something, Michael.
In 2018, the buzz was in. David Gordon Green, director of stoner comedies like Pineapple Express and Your Highness, had brought Jamie Lee Curtis back into the fold with a new Halloween film, aptly titled Halloween. And yes, for anyone keeping score, this is the third movie with just Halloween as the title. Co-written with longtime collaborator Danny McBride, it marked the return of Laurie Strode. Though, as mentioned earlier, this iteration erased everything after the initial Halloween, so Laurie was now just a random babysitter that was unfortunate enough to bump into Michael some 40 years ago. Now estranged from her daughter and granddaughter and living off the grid, Laurie's paranoia gets to say, "I told you so," when Myers escapes from Smith's Grove Institution yet again and comes after her extended family. This time, though, Laurie's prepared with a high-end prepper's worth of booby traps, artillery, and secret combustible basements. I do not want to play in that house. Curtis hadn't planned on doing another Halloween film, but was convinced by actor Jake Gyllenhaal, who she calls her unofficial godson, to meet with Green. Also returning to the franchise was Nick Castle, the OG Michael Myers, who, finally, is age-appropriate this time. It marks something of a family reunion, as the two were joined by Malik Akkad, the son of original producer Mustafa Akkad, John Carpenter, who signed on as executive producer and composer, as well as Universal Pictures for distribution. And that's saying a lot, because the last time Universal was attached to a Halloween movie, it was Season of the Witch.
Goodbye, Michael.
Final fact that may be redundant at this point, but here we go. Halloween was originally intended to be the final installment in the franchise until the film's success opened the door to, surprise, surprise, 2 more sequels. But you guys, they promise, they swear, cross their heart, this is the last time. So buckle your seatbelt and hide those kitchen knives because
the saga of Michael Myers and Laurie Strode isn't over.
Halloween kills and Halloween ends. In July 2019, both Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends were simultaneously announced by Blumhouse, set to debut a year apart. Both films were delayed a year due to COVID-19.
You and Allison should not have to keep running. Evil dies tonight.
The films are intended to be the end of the franchise for the time being. Does anybody really believe that? And Curtis has stated this will most likely be the last time she plays the role of Laurie. But you know, never say never, especially when a guy named Michael Myers is involved. Nancy Stevens and Charles Cypher are going to reprise their roles from the original film as Nurse Marion and Sheriff Beckett. Kyle Richards will also reprise her role as an adult Lindsay Wallace, and the role of adult Tommy Doyle will be played by Anthony Michael Hall. Paul Rudd was originally approached to reprise his role of adult Tommy Doyle, but couldn't do it thanks to scheduling conflicts. Filmmakers have teased that Halloween Kills will be a more cerebral story, focusing on the effects the murders have had on the Haddonfield residents, while Halloween Ends will be the largest and bloodiest film in the franchise, which we now know has a crap ton of movies to its credit.
You want your mask? Come and get it! I'm coming for you, Michael.
So there you have it, your essential rundown of all things Halloween. If you enjoyed this episode, why don't you head on over to RottenTomatoes.com and check out even more great content about Carpenter's famously freaky franchise and a lot of other seasonal scares as well. Have a happy and safe Halloween, and if you're trick-or-treating and there's a giant shape lumbering behind you, just pick up the pace a little bit. That dude can't walk more than 3 miles an hour. You'll be fine.